Scott William Bass.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm well. How are you? You hanging in there?
Yeah, I'm okay. Kind of
Okay.
all passed, but kind of a tough night.
Fair enough. Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
you want to tell me what this sound is to you.
That's my stomach last night.
I was going to say the opposite. I was going to say the sound of health.
It is the sound of health, but that is also what my stomach sounded like last night.
It's
and
the
my
sound.
entire intestinal tract, quite frankly, sounded like that.
Okay. Sound of health if it's in a shaker.
Right.
Sound of sickness if it's inside your body.
Right. No. But hey, look, well, you and I love the AG1. I've been on the program with you for, gosh, it feels like 2 or 3 years now. I don't even know how long it's been, but I'm a big fan. And like you said, like I feel like a good part of my day has been checked off, on my list of things to do. Like AG1 is at the top because it's part of my morning routine.
Yeah, they recommend doing it on an empty stomach, which is why I'm doing it now. It's 7 a.m. here. There's so much, like a trend in the last 5 years, certainly in the podcast world, but elsewhere as well, is life hacking. Like little tiny things that you can do that make everything else fall into place. And I feel like AG1 is kind of a life hack. It's don't have to think about your diet throughout the day. You do it in the morning. You don't even have to think about buying it. You set it on athleticgreens.com/surf. It shows up every month. You don't have to resupply. And all you got to do is add 1 scoop of powder to 8 ounces of water in the morning, and boom, health and wellness checked off.
Yeah. AG1, I think it's athleticgreens.com/surf is our URL that you're going to want to use to get a discount, and go do it now for your health, for the benefit and health of your family as well.
Absolutely. athleticgreens.com/surf.
Speaking of life hacks, real water sports, damn it. That's a hack. You want to get super top notch, all the best brands, all the best equipment. Real Water Sports is your one-stop internet destination. realwatersports.com.
It's a surf hack. Everything you need. Obviously, surfboards is what we talk about, but I mentioned last week they're doing their midwinter clearance sale, and board bags, backpacks, traction, wax. What else? Leashes,
Fins.
everything you need. Fins, everything you need.
Yeah. realwatersports.com. Our friend Trip Foreman and his crew there, they're going to take care of you. Incredible customer service, super great shipping. It's, door-to-door shipping of all your needs, and they've got an intense shipping department. So you're going to get your stuff on time and in great shape.
Yeah, realwatersports.com.
Yeah, freaking guy, David. Wow, we had quite a week of surf news. There was a lot going on, a lot to digest, so to speak, in keeping with the gastrointestinal theme of today's show. But you mentioned life hacks earlier. I was wondering, what other life hack do you like? It's funny, life hacks to me, I think, okay, what do you do in the morning? That seems like the life hack. But maybe there's a life hack. Well, maybe there's one in the morning. Maybe there's one later in the day. What's another life hack that you might suggest besides turning off your phone during a podcast?
Did you hear that, or did you have yours go off too?
No, I heard it.
Sorry.
I don't care.
It is, well, it's not off, but the vibration, it was just the vibration you got. Anyways, I'm not too, I listen to all that stuff and I'm up to date on it, but I don't implement a lot of the trendy stuff that everybody recommends so ice baths is one that people talk about.
Oh yeah, that's kind of the new hot thing.
Totally.
No pun. That would be like a reverse pun.
What? Oh yeah.
The new hot thing, ice baths.
I've tried it. I've never actually done the full ice thing, but I've done the cold shower thing. And I get it. It makes a lot of sense. I don't really feel like my life needs to be hacked that hard. There's people going to some extreme diet, extreme workout.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of good at going 90%, like a generally healthy diet. I get a moderate amount of exercise. And then I'm allowed to indulge as well. And that keeps me happy. Whereas I feel like if I did the really rigorous dedication to something, I wouldn't be that happy.
Yeah, ice baths. I'm way too soft for an ice bath. That sounds super extreme. You know what I mean? And what's interesting about like a lot of this stuff, it's like, look, AG1, we're just trying to get some nutrition in our system that we
Right.
normally wouldn't get. Ice baths is like, I'm not climbing Kilimanjaro in 3 months and training or anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm getting in my little car and I'm driving down to the beach, to surf 3-foot dribble.
And it's never colder. It's never colder than 60 degrees where you're driving. The water's never colder than 55. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, I don't want to be that uncomfortable. Now, I'm down with the jacuzzi. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm okay with that.
And even when, like, the AG1 example, there's no hard part about it. It's easy, actually. The only reason we do it is because it's easy. And in fact, that's kind of the point, is you and I are soft. Living in Southern California, number one, it allows you to be soft. I was going to say it makes you soft, but it just allows you to be soft. Every convenience is at arm's length, and there's no reason to kind of put your body and your mental state through that.
You bring up an interesting thing, because the way that society has changed, right? That everything's at our fingertips. So what a lot of people are doing is trying to make it hard again.
Yeah, I
which
agree.
is the irony. It's like, oh, you know what? Instead of drinking water out of the tap, let's take metal pails and walk 2 miles and collect water from the lagoon, bring it here, filter out the deer crap, and we'll have nature's water. It's like, okay, wait a minute, hold the F on.
Wait, do people do that?
No, but that's
okay.
Extreme. I mean, maybe it wouldn't surprise me if that's the new thing. Maybe we just invented the new thing. Who knows?
But I think to that, kind of to your point, why is everybody getting into bow hunting right now? Why is everybody into jujitsu and punching people in the face? And I think it is exactly what you're talking about. They make a product for our dogs called Kong, and the Kong you fill with peanut butter. So the dog sits on the sofa all day, but it has in it the vestige of its mind. It has the hunter-gatherer instinct. And so putting peanut butter in this silicone toy allows it to act out the hunter-gatherer. And that's what those dudes are doing.
What's sad is that my wife got me a Kong, and she fills it with Lorna Doones and little chocolate caramels. And I just sit on the couch and watch it all.
It's a Rubik's Cube that you have to unlock to get to the Lorna Doone. She's like, God, Scott's annoying the crap out of me. Scott, here you go. Jingles the keys. He gets your attention, and then you die for it.
My tail's a wagon. Hey, speaking of
so funny,
like kind of trendy things like Kongs for humans, have you done Wordle?
No.
Oh my God, I got involved in Wordle. We'll just leave it right there. We'll just leave it. Oh, you don't know what it is?
No.
It's an app. It's kind of like the new game app for words. You try to figure out either 5-letter or 6-letter or 7-letter words. People who know, it's kind of like the trendy new thing. Like, people on Twitter are like, check out my Wordle, And
I do wordscapes. Wordscapes. Do you do that one?
No.
Okay. I don't know if it's similar or not.
Sure it is.
Okay. So a couple simple life hacks though. These are tried and true, not trendy.
Yeah.
Reading a book.
Yes.
I feel like that's a life hack.
Unfortunately, it is. You would think that would be a normal thing, part of your daily routine. But I love that one. That could be considered a life hack. You know what? Maybe the life hack part of it is don't be on your phone before you go to bed. Read a book before you go to bed.
I think now I'm kind of having an epiphany. The life hack trend is designed to shortcut things that were just part of our lives up until this technology revolution.
Yeah.
So little things like having quiet time, eating non-processed food, maybe. Yeah. Not being on your phone, that sort of stuff was just a part of our life.
Right. Now we're taking shortcuts. They're like, here, put on this thing. It's an adult diaper. Yeah. You won't even have to use the restroom. You can just go through your day.
That's your employer is trying to mandate that. They're like, God, bathroom breaks are cutting into our time cards.
Yeah.
Let's implement diapers.
You know what my life hack is? And I hate to sound kind of, all of a sudden I'm catching myself sounding kind of a little braggadocio maybe, but I guess I want to tell people this. I would suggest prayer, and I'll just leave it right there. Pray to anyone you want. I don't care if you pray to whoever. Pray to yourself. But prayer is a good one. And it's one that I implement every day.
At the risk of sounding surfing is kind of a life hack. I mean, it very much is a life hack.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it falls into the prayer part. It's a good time to do a prayer is when you're out sitting out there.
That even a 45-minute session is a resetting for all of kind of what your values are in life, as far as I'm concerned. And obviously there's the exercise benefit. Getting in the cold water is kind of like the ice bath benefit. But it really
peeing in your diaper is like peeing in your wetsuit. Like surfing covers all of these things.
It really does, man.
Wow.
We solved it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It all comes back to surfing. Maybe we should remember, occasionally we get emails that are people like, don't talk about your personal crap. We don't give a shit. Please just talk surf, or tell us when so we can fast forward.
Yeah.
So we're probably about 5 minutes in and you should fast forward.
Those people are wrong. But surfing, it's funny. It does solve everything. I mean, if you think about the role that it's played throughout your life, it is therapy. It just puts everything into perspective. Like when you start getting caught up, maybe on keeping up with the Joneses, you go surfing and it kind of resets like, oh man, I don't need any of that. I don't want to do any of that. How do I just spend more time doing this?
Yeah.
Makes you a better father, makes you a better husband, makes you everything.
Yeah. Look at us solving everyone's problems. By the way, donate now.
So the big news since you and I last spoke was Sunset Beach. So our schedule has been a little bit mixed up. What we've been trying to do is keep things current. So we recorded last week right at the end of the beginning of the Sunset event. And then they ran the remainder of it over, I think, the weekend, maybe Friday. And so now it's Monday. You and I are first day back to work, here to cover all the Sunset news.
Yeah, and it's President's Day. And wow, what an event. What a great event. And a couple of things from a global perspective is some people, Dave Mailman was the guy, I guess I'll tell you on Twitter, he was like, look, I had second thoughts at first about starting the season in Hawaii. But I got to say, in many respects, it does a lot of cool things. Like it puts the greatest surfers in the greatest waves right at the beginning, rather than like, being two events in Australia and going, yeah, guess what? Philippe and Gabe and the little aerialists are all in the lead, which I kind of like that. Like, don't you like the fact that Baron Mamiya is number one and that Brissa Hennessy is number one? Like those are surprises. And I agree with Dave, but I on Twitter, I said, yeah, but in addition, I agree with you. Wouldn't it be great if it also ended in Hawaii? Like why not bookend the season in Hawaii?
Yeah, I think he's right. But the reality is we just love Hawaii. In terms of surfing, Hawaii is better. So if they put it anywhere in the season, we'll be thrilled that it's there.
Yeah. But it would be cool if it was bookended when you think about it. Because it's done what it's done already. And then it would do, what we already know it can do at the end of the season, which is surprise us and provide waves of consequence.
And the way that the season is traditionally laid out, it could.
Absolutely.
Now that we're ending in September, that's a little early for Hawaii. But if it ended in November, December again.
How would it be to end it in November, December? Everyone takes 3 weeks off and we start it the first week of February and do 2 events in February. You get the month of January off.
I love it.
And you get a mid-season. You'll also, by the way, get a mid-season break for the Challenger Series. Like we'll end it in September. There won't be anything until November 30th. And then the Challenger season can run so that those guys can qualify and all that.
Entirely into it. It's weird. We've been trying to, or not we, but the WSL has been trying to create more of a season and then an off season so the athletes have time to live a normal life and recoup and all that sort of stuff. But look, we're not a normal sport. We're not a ball sport. And what we are surfers. So we should dictate our schedule around Hawaii. I mean, really, truly.
Yeah. I know. It's so funny when you clear away all the the shade of, sponsors and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And you just kind of break it down like you did. Like, look, the waves are good in Hawaii in the winter. So
You're
start
guaranteed.
and end there.
Yeah. All of this nonsense of like chasing waves around the world, trying to put the best surfers in the best waves, but wait, it costs a bunch of money to send them somewhere. And then we need 2 or 3 swells because we have such a large field. And then where do we run the women? Do we bring the women? No, it's all solved in Hawaii. Everybody's there. Everybody's got somewhere to stay. You don't have to take planes back and forth, and you're guaranteed to get waves.
Yeah, it's funny because it's almost like the culture of the movie The Endless Summer set this whole thing up, and we've been biting on this hook forever. Like, oh, I got to go chase some waves because that's what we do. No, you know what? You go surfing in your backyard every day. That's what we do. And if we're going to run an event, let's do it in the best ways possible. I mean, if you look at The Endless Summer, yeah, okay, so on film, edited version, they got the best waves in South Africa. Well, guess what? We do a stop there. That's fine, But in reality, after 70 years, we all know the best waves are in Hawaii.
Hawaii lacks long point breaks. So we can do a couple, or in long reef breaks. So we could do a couple of trips. Yeah, we do the South Africa, we do cloud break. Chopu, I'm still down with. Yeah. But yeah, G-Land, fantastic.
Let's pull out all the bullshit. Like, let's pull out.
Pull it out.
No offense to Portugal or Europe. Let's pull it out. California, you're out. You know what I mean? Let's get rid of all the BS and just
dancing for sponsors and regions that you want to have business in. It's all nonsense.
It's bullshit.
It's nonsense.
I think we just nailed it. What about Australia? Do we go to Bells? We can go to Bells, right?
I like the 3-pack idea, like Snapper, Bells, Margaret. Although I'd rather run at North Point and box.
That's an option that presents itself.
I think it gives
the little snappy aerialists an opportunity to go crazy.
Makes them put a wetsuit on.
Keeps legacy going with Bells and Australia, which is the most sporting surf nation in the world. Yeah. Maybe Brazil's right there. Excuse me. Or Japan. But anyway, yeah, we just kind of nailed it.
Yeah.
So you got 3 events in Australia, then you go to wherever. We're not going to even do the dates, but we know it's G-Land, Chopu, maybe Cloud Break. That's kind of tough fiscally. J-Bay and Hawaii.
Yeah.
Boom. Done.
Solved it. Best tour. That's the dream tour right there.
That's the best tour ever. It's better than the dream tour. It's the BTE, best tour ever.
And what's happening now, what we're seeing on with starting the series at Pipe, the events, the tour at Pipe, is exactly what we anticipated with the women's side. We were talking about how the young girls are it's the new momentum generation. The young girls are going to upend all the established. And we were focusing on Katie Simmers and Aaron Brooks, like that 15-year-old crop of girls. This isn't that, but it's still actually happening. We actually didn't quite see or anticipate Gabriella Bryan, Luana Silva, Betty Lou Sakura Johnson to do what they've done. But I'm just going to read to you the top 5. We'll do it with the men because the men is really interesting too. Yeah. But the top 5 on the women's side, actually the bottom is more interesting, but the top 5 currently are Brissa Hennessy, Malia Manuel, Moana Jones-Wong, Carissa Moore, Joanne DeFay. So 3 of those are names that you might expect. But listen to the bottom below the cut line. So not even after the 5, but below the cut line. Tatiana Weston Webb in 14th, Sally Fitzgibbon, Stephanie Gilmore in 16th, Courtney Conlog in 16th, Caroline Marks in 19th.
Yeah, all the ones you mentioned are very surprising.
Those are world title contenders. Those are the top 5. Those are the top 5 in previous years.
They were world title contenders.
Crazy.
Can you come back?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're Caroline Marks, she's got some bad, what has she got? 5th, 17th place. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they could, but.
That's shocking though.
Yeah, it is. And wow. It's too bad Moana Jones-Wong didn't have a better sunset result, but she's kind of a pipe specialist. Totally. Yeah, it is. Now, if you go over to the men, tell me what you see there.
So the men's equally interesting. Actually, the top 5 is the most interesting part of the men. Baron Mamiya in 1st, Kano Igarashi in 2nd, Seth Moniz tied for 2nd, Kaio Abelli in 4th, Kelly Slater in 5th. So
yeah,
To me, the one that doesn't surprise me there is Kanoa,
Exactly.
but everybody else is surprising.
Yeah, absolutely.
And obviously, Baron Mamiya being in first is the most surprising. Kelly being in fifth is kind of surprising. And then again, when we go to the bottom for the men, it's Idolo, Kaloe, Griffin Colapinto in 27th.
Well, let's go to the cutoff. Let's go to the cutoff because that's what we did with the women. Is there anything there that surprises? Griffin surprises.
Yeah, Griffin at 27th is shocking.
I guess Connor surprises, I guess.
That's, I mean, Connor, even if he didn't surprise, it's not surprising to you and I. He was in the top 5 last year. So the fact that he's sitting on 27th right now is surprising. Morgan Siblick in 31st.
That's not surprising to me. But Owen Wright's kind of surprising. But I mean, you can make a case for Morgan because he was in the top 5. But to me, Morgan was an anomaly. I'm not saying he didn't surf well last year, but it wasn't the real season. I mean, let's be real. Like it wasn't.
There was always an asterisk.
What we know now is that Morgan Siblick cannot surf, doesn't have the experience to surf in Hawaii, hasn't put in the time, which is what we knew.
Yeah. So what about, we really need to discuss Owen Wright for a little bit.
I know. Look at how dismal that is.
Owen Wright in 31st is totally unacceptable. I watched him surf Pipe and Sunset. I don't remember a single wave that he caught. I wasn't really paying that close of attention, but I can't really criticize his performance other than to say completely did not stand out.
When I think about Owen, I don't like focus on him in early rounds. I always just anticipate looking up in the quarterfinals and seeing him in it. You know what I mean?
Completely. And he honestly, in previous years deserved to be there. Like he had absolutely memorable performances. And I wouldn't necessarily expect him to do well at Sunset, but I would expect him to do well at Pipe.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he makes up this ground. Going into Portugal, Portugal's not a known event for him. That's actually where he got injured that one year.
Yeah, I could see him doing good at Super Tubes though, but you're right. It's not like his, but
Wouldn't pick him for the survival team.
Oh, no. So then going to the final 5 cutoff, and you were ripping through them as I interrupted you, but John at 10, would two events in Hawaii, you would think John would be higher than that. Yeah,
that's a surprise, but John can clean that up. It was basically a loss at Sunset that affected his scoreline. The right outside the cut are some names that could easily jump into the cut: Ethan Ewing, Felipe Toledo, and Jordy Smith. And by the way, Jordy, we've talked about this in the past. Quietly, nobody's discussing him. Like as the focus gets shown on maybe the Kelly Slater story, the Kyle Abelli story, the Baron Mamiya story, Jordy can sit there and put together quarterfinals and be right in striking position the entire time.
Yeah, I agree. He's got 2 9ths, right? So those aren't going to be throwaways. And he's going to count. He's going to need some 3rds and some 5ths and hopefully a 1st or 2. And he'll be right there. And that's totally doable, absolutely doable.
So to the event itself, Baron Mamiya won over Kanoa Igarashi in the final. Brissa Hennessy won over Malia Manuel in the final. Let's talk about Baron first. When was the last time that a wild card came through and won the event?
We know Joel Parkinson did it a long time ago at J-Bay. But there's got to be a more recent. I think there was one last year, wasn't there?
There was one last event. Moana.
Oh yeah.
Moana at Pipe.
Oh yeah. I was just thinking.
I was setting you up. I know. I was setting you up there. And you could also technically, Kaio isn't a wild card. Kaio is
injury replacement,
right? But he still is kind of doing the same thing on his side of the thing.
So, yeah, but he's not as wild as Moana. I mean, Kaio's been on tour for a long time.
Or not as wild as Baron Mamiya, by the way.
Right, exactly.
So what are your thoughts on Baron? Is he the real deal? What you saw in Hawaii, do you think he can translate that to the rest of the tour?
Yeah, the second half of that question is the real thing here. So it's kind of I think everyone's like, wait and see. I mean, everyone that's looking at Baron from a fantasy surfer perspective, or just as a fan of the sport, is kind of going, okay, let's see what happens in 3, 4, 5, and 6 event. You know what I mean? Portugal, like if he had a shocker, not a shocker, but just didn't advance in Portugal, you'd be like, okay, that's doesn't surprise me. He's probably hasn't traveled there a whole lot, hasn't surfed in an event there. I'm just assuming. I mean, I'm sure he's been around the world a few times, but you know what I'm saying? Like if all of a sudden after Australia, he's barely hanging on to like 17th place, you'd be like, yeah, okay, he's an expert in Hawaii. And that's what
Yeah,
he is. He is what we thought he was. So the real test for Barron is coming up.
it really is. And by the way, Barron has not officially been included in the Portugal event yet. It would be a Travis sham mockery, to use Scott Bass's term, if he was not invited. I'm sure that they will invite him. But I've watched Barron since he was pretty young, and I've seen him surfing unbelievably well in smaller waves. But I can't imagine him surfing in a wetsuit for some reason. I've only ever seen him in trunks. And so I know like that's not hard to get used to, but the comfort that you have in your own local lineup is very, very different. Knowing which waves to go on, all that sort of stuff. So I think that there's always the issue of the learning curve of surfing competitively. I think that he was able to just kind of blow past that learning curve because he's so comfortable in pipe and sunset. And those waves actually kind of nullify a lot of that competitive tactics that we'll see elsewhere in the world. So I think he'll have to kind of get used to the competitive thing in Portugal, and then also get used to not knowing the lineups. So it's a big task for Barron, and I guess he's first, so he'll be drawing low seeds, so that might help.
Well, look, a lot of us see some of these wild cards for the first time ever as we watch the WSL and don't realize that, look, these guys have been surfing NSSAs since they were 7 years old. And Barron Mamiya is one of these guys, he's got some competitive understanding. Granted, this is a different level. This is the CT, but it's not like a pipe specialist, like somebody like, I don't know, just, name a goofy.
Jamie O'Brien.
Even Jamie surfed in NSSAs. I'm thinking, who's the lifeguard goofy foot that is, I'm missing his name right now. But
Mikey Bruno.
yeah, Mikey Bruno. It's not like Mikey Bruno won pipe and is now gets into wild card into Portugal, and you're going, dude, that guy's really only surfed pipe events. Like,
Which might be, that could be the Moana example.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. So, that's really where, okay, and then with Moana too and Barron, like it's really kind of about what does their crew look like? Like, who are they traveling with? Do they have coaches? Do they have people that are kind of, I don't want to use the word coddling of them, but moving them in the right direction regarding travel logistics, regarding getting your shit together, regarding having a mental space ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, that's the crucial stuff for these guys that are first timers on tour.
So Barron, yes, he does. Barron's managed by Sean Ward, who's a local guy here. Grew up with Brett Simpson, like QS kind of guy, but then started working with O'Neill. So he brought up John. He was doing all of that for John when John was a teenager, and then transitioned, I think, to Hurley. So was doing it as part of the Hurley camp when they were in their heyday, when they had everybody on their team. And he's since left. I think he has his own management company, or he might work for a different talent agency now. But he's got Barron Mamiya. He's got Eli Hanneman. He ushered those guys in, or ushered them through everybody getting dropped. So like when everybody got dropped by Hurley, Barron did as well. He worked the deal and put Barron on Ruka, which we didn't see a lot of people make those transitions. Eli was one of the few who stayed on Hurley. We didn't see a lot of guys make that transition. So Sean's traveled the world on the QS on his own prior to any of that. So I think Sean's the perfect guy to help put those things in place, get the right boards, working with Chris Gallagher, get the right coaches, So Barron could be a legit threat anywhere.
Yeah, I certainly would love to see, at the cutoff line, Barron right there in the running, not having to worry about not going to G-Land,
Yeah, this is an incredible storyline. I mean,
the WSL would love this as well, by the way. because he's a good figurehead. It seems like he's got a great head on his shoulders. Like you said, it sounds like he's got a great camp around him. So
Handsome. He's hunky.
and he's got a humbleness to him.
Yeah, he really does.
Kind of reminds me of Poncho a little bit. He's kind of got the same cool vibe that Poncho has.
He does.
Poncho
He's got that, but with more panache too, like more shreddability, you know?
Yeah, I just mean on the sand type of vibe, you know?
I totally agree. I like the humility because I had not seen a lot of his personality before, but I like the humility. And then of course, being able to both go ham at pipe, sunset, and then throw huge full rotation airs is incredible.
Yeah, and the way that the other guys, I mean, if you're around Hawaii, you already know this, but the way that Kelly and everyone else speaks of Barron, especially at Pipeline, it's kind of like he and Seth are kind of the heir apparents, if not already, you know, right there.
How cool is his name? Barron Mamiya.
Yeah, that's a cool name. He's got a cool name.
The name Barron is awesome. Yeah. I don't have the bravado to name my kid.
Who has the worst name on tour?
Matt McGillivray.
That's kind of just, yeah.
That's an obvious one. So how'd you feel about Kanoa?
I felt good about Kanoa. I mean, Kanoa, dude, come on. I know you've been kind of like, oh no, he's just going to get you sevens and that's it. And I sense there's another level to Kanoa this year. And I know, look, everyone's talking about it. And I think he's proving it. Like, there's one thing to talk about it. There's another thing to kind of go out there and do it. And even some of his post-heat interviews, he's very much eye on the prize. And I know that's sort of the standard line, like I'm just surfing one heat at a time, blah, blah, blah. But even more than that, I sense, you know, I hear him saying stuff like, look, unless I win, I'm not happy, you know, those kind of things, which he's kind of putting it out there. He's kind, you know what I mean? Which I kind of like. It's one thing to be like, hey, one heat at a time, let's just see how it goes, one wave at a time. And he's more like in the quarterfinals going, I won't be happy unless I win, and I plan on winning. And, you know,
it's undeniable. Like, and he's been doing it all along. Like the fact that I'm slow to the party. And by the way, I've known Kanoa since he was young. I'm a huge fan personally. I get
it. You and I thought that there was going to be like, okay, he's topped out. He is what he is. He's good for 7-point rides, and he'll always be right around six in the world, or fourth in the world, or whatever, you know. But will he ever be number one in the world? And that's kind of where I'm wondering, has David sort of, you're starting to see that maybe there's a little bit of a difference this year.
Specifically, what it is for me is when you watch John, I'm naming the number one surfer, the people who have had world titles and are the best surfers in a given year. John, Gabriel, Idolo, Kelly, they all have something that nobody else has on tour. That is like when they enter the water, wow, it clearly stands out. Kanoa's never had that for me, and he still doesn't, by the way.
I think you can throw Carissa into that list too.
I think you can too.
Yeah.
And so when Kanoa, you know, makes it through heats, it's doing things that I see everybody else doing. And his one kind of thing is consistency.
Yeah.
So he has
like really good vanilla, you know, really good vanilla. There's no sprinkles on top yet, you know.
He has slightly more, he has 30% more consistency than any other surfer, let's say on tour now that Gabriel's not there. So that's what you can bet on. But he still doesn't have that element of dynamism, whatever. I used to say you can guarantee he's going to get 2 7s, maybe 2 7.5s. He's pushed that up to 9s. The point of that was always, he's not going to be the guy getting a 10 in the heat. And I still don't think he's the guy getting the 10 in the heat. You watch Idolo go out, any heat, anywhere in the world, he could drop a 10. And you're anticipating that he does.
But
Felipe?
He could drop a 2.
Yeah, I know. And so I'm not advocating for Idolo. I'm just using it as a counterpoint.
No, I know.
That Kanoa, for him to get a 10, it needs to be exactly what he's going to do, the 9, and then end it with a huge maneuver, and that's the 10. Whereas Idolo or somebody else, it's like, no, you could just see him do 2 crazy things, and that's the 10 because it's so crazy. You see Kanoa being a little bit more methodical manufacturing,
Yeah.
pragmatic to
Yeah.
get to those scores. And that's
Yeah.
where the 10 falls short.
Yeah.
I'm
Hey,
still for it. I'm all about it, but
I got to go take a break, but
you got the dog barking again?
don't you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll add that in.
Look, you've got a dog. You know how this is.
She's quiet.
Okay.
So moving on from Kanoa, the Kaio story.
Yeah, incredible.
The Kaio story is incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting. I as a fan, I guess I'm a fan. My point is, every time he's in a heat, I'm always rooting for the other guy. I find myself, and it's not that I'm against Kaio. We love Kaio. Like last year, we were like raising money for him.
Yeah,
remember?
We raised it at the wrong time. That's the problem. What I'm pissed
He
about
forgot us, damn it.
Well, what I'm pissed about with Kaio is he was a giant killer, 2 or 3 years ago. And so we identified, so his stock was rising. So we identified all of that. And so last year then, when his main sponsor dropped him, we saw that as an opportunity. We're like, let's get behind this guy. He's a giant killer. This could be a guy with no sponsors who goes on to be in the top 5, maybe even win a world title, right? So as his stock hit its zenith, we bought in. Yeah. And we're like, hey, what's it cost to put a sticker on your board? He said $15,000. We said, we'll try. We came up with 7,500. And we're like, hey, will you take this? And he goes, okay, I'll put it on the chest of my board, not necessarily the nose. We're like, sweet, we're so excited. That was at Rotnest. He lost in the round of 32 and all he's done. And so then the stock dropped and he didn't qualify for the tour.
Yeah.
And so now the stock's at the bottom. We ignore him. We walk away, lost our money, walked away. And then when the stock's at its low point, boom, skyrockets again. Guy makes semifinals 2 events in a row in Hawaii. Now he's on the top of the world. He almost walked out wearing the yellow jersey.
He's like cryptocurrency. That's what Kaio is.
we bought it the wrong.
Kaio Crypto.
Crypto Kaio.
Crypto Kaio. That's his new nickname. Hashtag Crypto Kaio. Now let me ask you this: why did we agree on him putting it in the middle, our sticker in the middle of his board?
Because we didn't.
That's where all the crappy wax is. I'm okay with it in the middle of the board, on the bottom of the board.
I think he had both, top and bottom.
Okay.
Yeah. At any rate, it's a wonderful, wonderful story. I do have a little animosity because I also feel like he didn't quite hype us as much as we hyped him. There was a real opportunity there for a convergence of like, this is such a feel-good story. And then he's just grateful for the support, right? Grateful to the community. These are his fans. You need to show gratitude for your fans.
Well, and even more than that, I think what you're getting at is you would have liked to see him go, hey, this is happening for me. This idea of crowdfunding for your favorite surfer can be something for everyone. And like, he didn't really pontificate the concept, I
don't think he quite understood it.
Yeah.
That ultimately was the problem, was like, he wasn't sure if there was a joke being played on him or something. So maybe that's on, me for not communicating. I don't know. How much more can I communicate? I'm talking 4.5 hours a week. But anyways, it's a great story so the reality is, us aside, he was disqualified from tour. It's also interesting that he's been kind of the pain. He and Gabriel have had these kind of butting of heads. They're fellow countrymen, and they've had these butting of heads for years. And Gabriel implementing that very controversial interference at Pipeline the previous year just to get through that heat. For those who don't remember that, Gabriel had such a combination on Kaio that he was able to snake Kaio on a wave, lose his second score, and still beat Kaio in that event. But it was just all this tactical stuff has come into play between their relationships. Kaio's beat Gabriel when he could have won the event, I think in Portugal. And so it sent the world title. He could have won the world title in Portugal. It sent the world title to Hawaii because Kaio beat him in that event. So there's been all this back and forth. So the fact that Gabriel pulls out of the season presumably, pulls out at the beginning of the season, gives Kaio access. I feel like now if Gabriel even comes back, the WSL has to give Kaio access to the rest of the year because he's earned it.
Totally agree. And as you told the story that you and I've been telling for a while now, I find myself saying, this feels like the WSL's missed the boat on developing a great story about two Brazilian surfers that have, at least on paper, a legitimate rivalry.
Yeah.
There's legitimate pressure points that you can go to and go, boom, boom, boom. This is why, and then go to each one of them and have them talk about it, and hopefully
Totally.
but maybe the WSL will help develop this. But wow, wouldn't it be insane if Gabe raises his hand and goes, I'm done with my mental break. I'd like to come back, and they kick Kaio off tour.
Yeah.
Now you've added to this thing.
Totally. He'd have to come back on the Challenger Series and, fight his way back. I mean, that'd be a shame if it happened, but it could happen. How do you feel about his staying power?
I mean, he's got it. I mean, look, didn't he take out Jack Robinson and Margaret River at the box or something like that one year?
Kelly,
yeah.
He took out Kelly at Margaret
a couple years ago.
But
I mean, look, he didn't do well at Rottnest. The thing is you got to give him a full tour. You can't just implement him one in a while and go, dude, you better win or you're out. And he's kind of lived up to that already. Give him a break. Let him be on tour and let's see how it plays out. Now, he was on tour 1 year.
Yeah, that's how when he didn't qualify last year, or didn't requalify. I still have a little bit of a question mark with Kaio. As well as he surfed in Hawaii, he's a little wily. And in every heat, he makes big mistakes. He falls on set waves that could be scores. He's usually able to make up for it because he's so wily that he ends up getting 20 waves in a heat. But he needs to clean all of that stuff up. Those are things that Kanoa Igarashi would never do.
Who I'm stoked for is Rusty.
Oh yeah.
The Rusty brand and Rusty Preisendorfer in general, because that's a surfboard shaper that is iconic, and it's so cool to see. It's kind of like, if Rawson had a CT guy, or if, I don't know, like one of the older generation shapers such as Rusty back in the forefront with high performance surfing,
Totally. From my era, Taylor Knox and Kalani Robb were on Rusty on tour.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's been the Hobgoods, obviously.
Aki was on Rusty in the late 80s.
And Dave Parmenter was on Rusty back
then. Yeah, he might have. And I mean, look, if you really want to go back, I mean, Sean Thompson and PT were riding Rusties.
Yeah.
Canyons.
Yep.
Which were Rusties way back in, late 70s, early 80s. But
Pat O'Connell.
There's a bunch.
I think when
that brand has a great history.
When Pat was on tour, he might have transitioned to Timmy Patterson, but he was on Rusty through the Endless Summer and all that.
Chris Ward
did a stint. That's right.
Yep.
They need women. They need a women's team. I can't even envision a female pro riding Rusties. Can you?
Well, you know who it was? It was, I don't know if she did it on tour, but Holly Beck right now rides for Rusty, as a quote unquote ambassador. Did Holly Beck ride some Rusties back in the day?
I don't recall. I think maybe Serena Brooke might have.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
At any rate, yeah, you're right. That's a great call. It's good to see them back. I know Wade Carmichael was riding his boards in previous seasons. Yeah. But it is great to see. That's just such a good logo. It just looks good.
The tour always needs one guy that's like a keg of beer that's from Australia. We had Mick Lowe, we had Wade Carmichael, we had the Panda guy from Brazil. He was kind of a keg of beer.
Yeah.
Is there a keg of beer on tour this year? I'm looking. I don't see a keg of beer here.
William Cardoso. Yeah, let's look at
Idolo's the closest guy to a keg of beer that I can see here.
Kelly actually might be.
Oh my God. Kelly's the keg of beer on tour.
Things are in a sad state of affairs when Kelly is the keg of beer on tour. Brutal.
Oh my God. This guy. Yeah.
I'm looking through. The funny thing is some of the guys who used to be the kegs are now so tight. Like Jordy Smith is rocking the 6-pack. Frederico Moraes is so lean, even though he's a large guy. Yeah, they're all pretty lean, unfortunately.
Jackson Baker, I could see, like, if he stays on tour, having a bunch of pints, you know, tipping back a few pints and becoming the keg.
So I texted you throughout the event that I really, really like Jackson Baker. I had not seen a lot of him previously. He reminds me so much of Stu Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
He's up on a wave and I'm like, that's Stu Kennedy 2.0.
Huh.
And Stu Kennedy is kind of a guy that I felt like surfed so much better than his results ever showed, you know? And
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that doesn't happen for Jackson. Anyways, the other big story that you and I need to talk about is the Jake Marshall story.
Yeah, buddy. Jake Marshall.
Crazy.
I want $100.
You do. I'm going to pay you. I got to pay you.
I keep saying you don't have to pay me because it was an injury situation.
It doesn't matter. The fact is Jake has earned that $100 for you. Like even if Carlos was still in it,
yeah,
I don't know. Jake just earned it. He
did surf well.
And I'm
judge on Florida.
I know, dude. And I'm feeling the same way about him that I feel about Kanoa, where he paddles out and I just still have this big question mark. Like, I don't think he's going to do it. And then he sets into a bottom turn. I'm like, that's a pretty sick bottom turn. And then he does a top turn. I'm like, whoa, that was a sick hook. And then he does it again. I'm like, wow, that's going to be a decent score. And he just does it not every time. He didn't do it at Pipe, but he's been doing it at Sunset.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. We're all stoked for the local kid here. All of us here in Encinitas Board Riders Club.
Is that official?
What?
The Board Riders Club?
It's a thing, yeah. Encinitas Board Riders Club.
You guys have meetings?
I'm not. I mean, I'm on the periphery. I'm not. But yeah, there's events. I mean, it's part of the West Coast Board Riders Club. You know, there's clubs up and down the coast now. There's like a Carlsbad one. I think there's an Oceanside one. We know there's a Santa Cruz one. There's a Huntington one. There's
Seal Beach.
San Clemente. Is there a Seal Beach one?
There's a Seal Beach one.
There's a San Clemente one. There's an Encinitas, Oceanside, Carlsbad, and they're going. Rabbit Bartholomew invited 3 of the clubs over to surf in the big club event in Australia this year. I forget what it's called. They got a name for it. It's called something like what I don't even know what it's. I should know, and I do. I used to know, but I can't remember. But anyway, all those board rider clubs over there have a big, series and event. So they're bringing Santa Cruz, San Clemente, and Huntington Beach.
Amazing.
Over to the board riders.
Amazing.
A big time event in Australia.
It's epic.
Yeah.
Can I read to you this email that I received? It says, you were getting this email because you were among the 72% of Survival League that picked a surfer that did not place 33rd or 17th at the Pipe Masters. How hard were you rooting for John to lose? That alone took out 15% of the league. They said after the Pipe Masters, but this was actually after Sunset that I got this email. Anyways, only 53% remain. So
how many? 15?
53%.
Oh, 53.
53%.
After 2 events, half the field wiped out because of John.
Crazy. Right?
That's amazing.
So the biggest
I'm still in it. You're still in it.
Yeah. The biggest disruptors at Sunset were Billy Kemper, Connor Coffin, Kelly Slater, Griffin Colapinto. They all went down. I don't know who would have picked Kelly or Billy for Sunset. I mean, Billy's obviously a good not for a CT event though. You know what I mean? Like that's such a risk.
I know.
But you know what happened to me? I had set Seth Moniz as my survival pick, but I wasn't feeling super I just felt like there was probably a better pick out there that I hadn't landed on.
Yeah.
Then the WSL sends this email out and it says, they were like, set your fantasy team, but don't overlook Griffin Colapinto. Griffin Colapinto's made 3 finals out there and look at all these other stats, blah, blah, blah. So I went to Survival League's website, survival-league.com.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to reset. I'm going to pick Griffin. But it wasn't easy for me to do. And had it been simple, I would have done it and then lost in this event. But what it would have required is me sending Taylor an email and being like, hey, can I change my pick? that one little bit of friction, I was like, I don't want to send Taylor an email right now. I'll just leave it with Seth. Let's just see how this whole thing shakes out. Thank goodness I didn't send that email. I was this close to going with Griffin.
Yeah.
But I kept it with Seth, ended up in the semis, boom, still in it.
Well, I mean, Super Tubes coming up, Portugal. It's kind of, I don't know if there's one event where I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea who's going to get through. It feels like that's one of them.
So thankfully, I've still got Kanoa.
Yeah.
You picked him for pipe. I'm going to go with Kanoa. Kanoa will get through the round of 32 anywhere, but he spent like all of quarantine in Portugal. His girlfriend, I don't know if they're still together. She's Portuguese. And so he's spent years and years in Portugal at this point.
That's pretty good insight.
That's the inside trading info right there.
That's pretty good.
So he's very comfortable in Portugal. He speaks Portuguese. And so he's my pick. But I think another good pick would be Idolo. Despite his poor performance, or maybe because of his poor performance in Hawaii, he needs to do well. And he's finaled out there before, I remember, against Felipe. I don't know if he won that event or not, but he could do well at any beach break in the world. So Felipe's an easy pick. I'm sorry, not Felipe, Idolo. Idolo's the easy pick.
Idolo scares me because there's a lot of pressure on him.
He can handle pressure.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Have you seen those abs? They can handle the pressure.
I'm just looking at the list trying to figure out who I'm going to pick, and it's a scary one.
Well, you have 2 weeks. March 3rd is when the event kicks off. So that means March 2nd at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is when you can get your pick in.
Stab in the dark. Let's talk.
I'm so excited to watch it. I have not watched episode 1 yet.
I've got it here ready to watch. I started to watch it, but I got involved too late in the morning here. But Stab in the Dark episode 1 is out, so we got to watch that. That's going to be fun. It's Jack Robinson, I think you mentioned, so that'll be good. And then I was looking here, and the reason I brought it up is because you know who I wanted them to do Stab in the Dark with next time? I'm already thinking about the next one.
Michael February.
No.
Kelly Slater.
No.
Who?
Ethan Ewing.
Oh man, how good of a surfer is he?
That guy is buttery, man.
It's a joy to watch.
He's kind of got, like I said last time, I think he's got a little Tom Curran mixed with like, he's like a more high performance version of Tom Curran. He's got the style of Curran, but the flair of
Andy.
Irons.
It's Andy all day long, especially with that Billabong sticker on the nose.
Yeah.
He's the real deal, dude. And I don't know, it's such a weird equation to know.
He looks so young. I look at him and I'm like, he's too young to be this good. Like he's got kind of a baby face.
Yeah. Well, the weird equation though is he was a junior world champ. So competitive prowess.
Yeah.
Unbelievable technique. I mean, he's as good of a surfer as exists.
Yeah.
And then just doesn't make it through heats.
Well, that's changing, right? I mean, he was kicked off tour 1 year, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he came in with that much hype, like this is the next coming. And then he just lost round 33rds all year long, you know? Yeah. And so
I think it's a weird thing that exists in the surf. I think that's a good thing. And in a weird way, you know, you look at even Andy Irons kicked off tour after his rookie year. You know, there's guys that use that as a reason to motivate, and it's being proven out right now, at least. Although he didn't have a great pipe event.
No, he didn't. But I would put, in terms of just like, if I saw him and Jack Robinson each surf a wave, I would put my money on Ethan Ewing as being the guy who will go the distance.
Yeah.
And yet he just constantly doesn't go the distance. So one event isn't enough to say that he's turned everything around. But
yeah,
I still have hopes.
Plus you got Kelly Slater saying, hey, this is the guy who I think is one of the best surfers in the world.
Yeah. Everybody's been saying that about him his whole life though. So it's not a new thing for him to hear, but I just like watching his surf. Yeah, that's true. I just like watching his surfing so much that I want him to do well so we can see him in more and more heats.
Yeah. I'm looking at, you know, I'd rather see Ethan than Kaio. Ethan needs to be there. I think Ethan would be a really great one in the final 5.
So You know what I love about Ethan? I watch him surf and it's informative for my own technique in surfing. I watch him go into a bottom turn and oh, that's a reminder. Stay low, stay centered, just keep doing the same exact fundamentals. And it translates to any surfboard, to any wave in the world. I watch Idolo. I can't relate in any way, shape, or form.
No.
I'm like, his technique's different than I've ever seen. Every body motion, it's just all, I don't even know what he's doing. I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
It doesn't inspire me, or it's not aspirational.
There's
Ethan,
a flow. Yeah. Ethan has a flow.
That's the current thing that you're talking about.
And it's not, I mean, I'll tell you what, Sunset really showed this too, is these kind of herky-jerky 5-point bottom turns because their boards were too small and there was some chunk in the wave.
Yeah.
And Ethan had some flow. Kanoa had flow. These guys had flow. Barron had such flow. Basically, what I'm saying is one rail buried the whole time, not popping the rail out, resetting it, popping it out, or just kind of hanging back on the fins and waiting for that one moment. Okay, it's time to set the rail. Yeah. Ethan was just keeping the rail buried through the turn.
Kaio was a culprit of doing the check bottom turn. He would sometimes do one full dig, but lots of times he would do the check bottom turn. So again, a lot of things. I'm pretty
sure that that shows up in the judging. I'm pretty sure that the judges are like, look, if you're doing a 5-point bottom turn, we're not too hyped on that.
Totally. So great event. Also, congratulations over on the women's side. Everything got upended as well. We kind of touched on it, but Brissa Hennessy over Malia Manuel in the final. Malia's never won an event, which is kind of a shocker. She's been in a few finals. She was in a final in Mexico last season. But Brissa Hennessy just looked fantastic. Carissa Moore going down early was a total shocker. Same Steph Gilmore. I think she got last place. That was a shocker. But Betty Lou Sakura Johnson looked phenomenal, and I actually expected to see her in the final. And Gabriella Bryan looked phenomenal as well. So it was kind of a Hawaiian showdown there in the final series.
Look, I mean, I'll ask you this: which of the gals that's below the cut line right now? Tatiana, Sally Fitzgibbon, Steph Gilmore, Courtney Conlon, Bethany, Carolyn Marks, Bronte McCauley. Which one of those doesn't make it through the cut?
Courtney doesn't make it. Sally might not make it.
Yeah.
I could see Steph and Tati cleaning things up. I mean, honestly, maybe Steph doesn't make it.
Yeah. That's kind of the one that I'm thinking.
If Steph's head isn't in it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much she cares at this point. She needs to care in order to do well. And I would expect her to do well at Sunset, and she didn't.
Yeah, I agree. I think Steph, and it's not a knock on her or her surfing. What does she have? 7 world titles or something?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, she got 9th place at Sunset. I misspoke.
I think that, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's hard. You've got 2 kind of crappy finishes. You've got 7 world titles. And you're going against all these young chicks that are just blowing doors, and you can't really do aerials. Not that any of those, well, some of them can, but yeah, I could see her headspace being, I'm going to mail it in and not make the cut. And that's cool. I get to go to Australia. Maybe be a good time to go, you know what? I'm retiring.
Yeah. After
this season. So that she gets the Australian, la-di-da.
Yeah. It's interesting. But I was excited. I thought the women surfed incredibly at Sunset. They obviously charged on the first day of their competition. The waves are actually big in the morning, kind of big and woolly. They were going on everything. They were doing huge open face carves. So I thought that was a big kind of rebound from Pipe. And Betty Lou Sakura Johnson is the one that I'm kind of most excited to watch develop throughout the season.
What do you think about Carolyn Marks here? She's got a crappy, 17th, and then she withdrew because of injury at Sunset. Yeah, she's got some pressure on her, man.
It's a big surprise. I would expect her to be her surfing is top 5 surfing anywhere in the world every season. So that's a shocker.
That is a shocker.
Following up from last week, I was asking you about the Joel Tudor calling out the WSL stuff, and we didn't really get into it. And we don't need to kind of get into the gossipy nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of ideas that have come from that conversation that I do want to run past you.
Yeah.
He proposed, what about, I know it's expensive to send longboarders around the world and hold a full tour, whatever, probably can't warrant that. What about just bringing longboarders to the current stops, not even all of them. We don't have to go to Chopu, but going to the current stops like J Bay, Sunset, stuff like that, and letting us surf the down days. We can run our competition on the days when you guys call a lay day.
If, as a fan, yeah, go for it. I don't care. I may or may not watch. Depends. If it's, looks like good longboarding, I might watch it. If it's crappy blown out stuff and there's a reason it's a lay day, I might not watch it. As an administrator of the WSL, you're adding a ton of cost.
Less than sending an entire different tour somewhere.
Right, but they're not doing that anyway. So you're adding cost to my bottom line.
No, right. But Joel, so I should have stated the initial reason that their current longboard world champion is calling them out is because they talk about equality.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying.
So they talk about equality, then they use all the longboard imagery through all the commercials in the middle of a CT event. They use them on Instagram to get more engagement than they get from any of their other stuff. So Joel's just saying, if you guys never said the word equality, this wouldn't be a conversation. But if you guys are talking about equality, then you should be including us, not just benefiting off of this.
Look, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not for or against what Joel's saying. I'm just saying, if I'm in the seat of the WSL administrators, you're adding cost to my situation. And that's why not, And again, as a fan, I'm saying, yeah, I might enjoy that. As an administrator, I'm saying, no, I'm trying to keep my costs down. As an arbiter of equality, I'm saying, okay, well, then you got to surf 8-foot Chopu. Like, you want equal, then that's equal. The men are surfing 8-foot Chopu, the women are surfing 8-foot Chopu, so are the longboarders. And guess what? It doesn't translate.
I don't think that needs to be, I don't think that is.
Well, that's what we do with the women. We're like, look, if you want equal pay, you got to put the women out at pipe.
Yeah.
That's our argument. If that's our argument, it has to be our argument for everything, for spongers, for longboards, for shortboarders, for
no, I think you
want equal pay, then you got to go out in the same surf.
I mean, that's interesting. It's a very interesting point because there needs to be more nuance than just full blanket, because that's not the way that longboarders should be surfed.
Too much friggin' nuance. That's why we're at where we're at.
Yeah, that's true. But I guess my point is that's not the way that longboards are supposed to be surfed. Nobody wants to even watch that.
I agree.
And we had that conversation about the women's tour for a long time, which was, yeah, I'd rather watch the women surf Honolulu than surf pipe and they, by the way, should have a totally different scoring criteria, because what Stephanie Gilmore does on a wave is actually more beautiful and interesting to watch than what Adriana De Souza was doing on a wave at lowers. You know what I mean? And so let's just kind of create a criteria that suits women's strengths rather than holding them to the standard of men. The WSL did not go down that route. The WSL decided, no, we're going to kind of hold them to the exact same standard and the same judging criteria. And that might be the big misstep. That's now why they're surfing pipe, or not surfing pipe, actually, by being put out at pipe and then not paddling on, So I don't think it's a smart move to do the same thing with the longboards, but the men and the women longboarding absolutely can surf the same exact venues and be held to the same judging criteria, because that's the way those boards are meant to be surfed, Yeah. But I think Joel does create a good point, which is fine. If you guys don't want to have a tour and the administrator, you don't want to add cost, then do away with it, but don't necessarily, try to benefit off of our backs and say that you're all about equality without offering us opportunities to earn a living.
Yeah,
if you
I
are
agree.
going to be the arbiters.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make clear that I'm making a stand as if you're putting me in the role of the fan, and you're putting me then in the role as the WLS administrator, and then you're putting me in the role of what is equality actually, if it's an even playing field. And so I'm giving you 3 different viewpoints. Me personally, Scott, I don't care. I don't even care one way or the other. Like, I'm not that big a fan of longboard surfing to be like, I can't believe that this is horrible. I like watching it, and I will watch it, but I'm not as as engaged as Joel is. This is important to Joel, and I get it. And by the way, he came across really professional in those comments. Like I enjoyed that version of Joel where it was like, hey, look, like he seemed, you know what I mean? He came across professional is what I'm trying to get at, as opposed to like, this is, you know, like sometimes he can be a little bit edgy.
I agree.
And he made a great points. And I was like, yeah, that does make sense. You know, like, okay,
see,
run on the off days. Let's see how it goes. I'm okay with it.
It's funny.
I'm not saying I'm like, I don't find myself on the edge of my seat going, you got to run the men's in Hawaii every year, you know, which is, you know, like that's my take on the CT. Like you got, you know, everyone's got the same take there. I don't think there's a bunch of people on the edge of their seats going, run the longboarders during the off days. Like I you know, but
it's
if
so
there
funny.
isn't, then Joel makes a good point. You know what? You can't have our media rights, you know? And so basically what they need to do is have a sit down and hash all this out professionally, not on social media.
You know what's so funny is that we're on opposite sides of this. I would expect you to be arguing for the longboarders and me to be like, no.
Well, but I'm not arguing for or against. My point is, I'm what's the word? I'm not ambiguous. I'm
indifferent.
Indifferent. Thank you.
So I am arguing for, because I thought that I wouldn't have cared. I do think that there's value to that tour, and I do think it's very good. I don't think I'm necessarily going to go out of my way to tune in on some other day, but if it's an off day during a CT event, I'm totally down. What else am I going to do with the day? I'm totally down.
No, you're not. Here's the thing. I'm in favor of a longboard tour as well, but you know where the longboard tour needs to go? It may be on a smaller, maybe. But the longboard tour needs to be at just a few spots. There's only a few spots where it's good. Like they should do it at San Onofre. They should do it at Noosa. They should do it at Malibu.
Lowers.
And I'm sure that Joel and those guys could find a few other great longboarding waves that I'm missing. But if you're gonna do a world longboard tour, it shouldn't be with the others. It shouldn't be at Chopu or wherever.
No, it shouldn't be at Chopu. I think there's.
It shouldn't be at J-Bay. It shouldn't be at G-Land. It should be at those spots that are great longboard waves.
Yeah.
And that's where, and then I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm watching. It's 4 foot at Malibu, and Joel and those guys are out. You know, I'm the Marshall brothers or whoever it is, you know, whoever the guys are, Harrison and all those guys. I'm into that. I love that. I ride my longboard a ton, and I can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I'm not saying off days at Super Tubes is where I want to watch guys hanging 10.
Not off days at Super Tubes, but I think that there are venues, so they don't need to go
off. Where's an off day on tour that you're stoked to see the longboard?
Well, first of all, Lowers makes for a great finals venue. Hold on, I'm going to pull up the tour actually. So J-Bay, the aforementioned J-Bay, I think Sunset would absolutely work. Bells Beach. So let's go. Sunset, Bells, Margaret, maybe not. El Salvador, J-Bay, Trestles. There's 5.
All right. Those actually might make sense.
Yeah. And that's a more robust tour than they had before.
You're assuming that off days means that it's glassy and 2 to 3 feet.
Well,
because it can't be an off day because there's blown out 8 foot waves. You can't run it then. And you might have to. You might be like, hey, we're here. It's an off day. It's 8 foot and blown out. That's what you want. This is the only time we got for you.
Within a 2-week window, they can find the days.
How many days do they need?
Probably one.
Men's and women longboarding?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know how big the field is.
It's a pretty big field, I bet. I'm going to say it's probably 24 guys.
Yeah.
Maybe 12 girls.
Well, so.
And, by the way, once you start giving equality, or you start spouting, which is what got them in this problem anyway.
Exactly.
Then it's going to be like, give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
I mean, that is the danger, because you're right. As soon as the waves turn on, there'll be arguments about why you're running the CT men's.
Yeah.
But here, you know what's funny though? You're saying like, oh, I don't care about watching it. The engagement that the WSL gets with the longboarding, Joel displayed the data. So they get more engagement with longboarding than they do shortboarding. And that's it makes sense because the vast majority of surfers on the planet are not riding pointy thrusters. In fact, the smallest majority are riding pointy thrusters. So it's interesting that the WSL has put all their eggs in that pointy thruster basket, which I guess maybe that's the equivalent of F1. Like, we want to just see the peak performers shave seconds off a mile or fractions of a second. Most of us are driving Honda Accords on the freeway.
So longboarding's like NASCAR. It's our
Longboarding,
it's our stock board that we go to is our longboard.
Yeah, maybe it's more
That's
go-kart.
what NASCAR was.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know if there is a good automobile analogy, but I just feel like the longboarders deserve their own tour. And you did make a good point, though. You just brought up 5 spots on the tour that, if it's 2 to 3 feet in glassy, would make sense.
Yeah,
those point waves.
I think Joel's point was like, look, you're clearly not doing a longboard tour, so why not just include us along and fill us in the gaps? But you're right, as soon as they do that, there will be demands for equal opportunity.
Yeah, because the idea here, this is all under the auspices of equality.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we want equality. And
WSL's really backed themselves into a corner by promoting that, huh?
It's amazing that data that you brought up, that Joel brought up, I mean, it's true. Is. Like 90% of the newbies are on longboards or coming off of them to 7-10 mid lengths. And a lot of guys like you and I, and a vast majority of the older demographic, is riding longboards. And we appreciate really good longboard surfing. I mean, we just really do, which is why I'm like, I'd like to see it at Malibu. I'd like to see it at Noosa. And the idea that it runs on off days already sets it aside as not being equal. That's, I think, what I'm getting at. It's like, oh, off days. Oh, just as an aside, because we got nothing better to do, let's throw those guys out here that are bugging us.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I'm like, they're not really giving it the mojo that it deserves.
Yeah. I'm going to use this opportunity to also drive home another point that I made recently that we're going to mention every single week until it happens.
Yeah.
Overlapping heats, men and women at the same time. Boom. If you want equality, that's how they should be running these events.
Overlapping heats, men and women at the same time. You want equality, same waves? This is a great point.
The men and the women run simultaneously. There's 4 people in the water, 2 men, 2 women, with the priority heat, just like they currently do. Yes. But the men and the women are surfing the exact same swell at the exact same moments.
Yes. You know what? Boom. For just because this is kind of a woke show, I'm going to agree with you.
Bring it, WSL. And by the way, at the end of the season, a lot of questions will be answered.
All right.
You know what I mean? Like, we'll know kind of that the judging favors people or favors one sex or doesn't, or, all sorts of stuff. We'll know whether the women are dodging sets, who's out of position, all that kind of stuff.
What's your take on this transgender swimmer that just set a record, NCAA college swimmer that just set a record?
I didn't see it. I wasn't following. What happened?
Transgender swimmer set a record in an NCAA women's event.
So trans woman, born male, competing as a female?
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay. Interesting. When did they transit? Do they have any record of them
I don't know.
Swimming as
I might even have it wrong. It might have been a woman that turned into a man. No, it's got to be a man that turned into a woman, and that's why it's a news story.
Interesting. Okay. A couple things in Webland. I didn't watch these yet, but these are all on my viewing list for this week. Noah Dean has a new edit out, Stab in the Dark episode 1, Michael February's Sonic Souvenirs Volume 2. We talked about Sonic Souvenirs Volume 1 months ago when it came out, where
it was cool. Him and Dane, right?
It was just him.
Dane was involved.
Well, Dane made an edit for Mikey a month or 2 ago, but this was previous to that. And this was with all that, I want to say it was like Ethiopian jazz. Like, he found this record collection or something. The music was incredible. And then it was him riding different boards. So Sonic Souvenirs Volume 2, haven't watched yet, but I plan to. The other big thing this week on the 27th is the 50th anniversary of Morning of the Earth.
Oh my God, you're bringing back, you're old school, man. That's cool. Morning of the Earth, 50th anniversary. What am I supposed to do exactly? Like
Watch it.
smoke some mull up a cone?
I think whatever they were doing back then, is that what they were doing? Were they
That was part of what they were doing.
they were doing more than that?
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do. I'm
Yeah.
not going to judge, but
Lifting up cow pies.
Morning of the Earth, they've remastered the whole thing. So you can buy, there's like a book that comes with it and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, pretty seminal film.
Absolutely. Well, good. We'll get involved with all of that stuff. There's a bunch of other news that we just can't get to today, but we'll try to get to it. But
Next
Jamie
week.
Mitchell, like Nazare, like I don't even care. I mean,
know.
you've said this so many times, and it's so true. Like I just don't care about Nazare, and I
know.
enjoyed the 100-foot wave thing, but
I know.
Nazare. I mean, Jamie Mitchell paddled into a wave at Nazare. It's been done before, but he caught a pretty big one.
Yeah.
And I love Jamie Mitchell. And I love these guys' efforts. I just can't relate. It's
Okay, let's
like,
give him the Duke.
Okay, Jamie's our Duke.
Jamie, congrats. That was an epic wave.
Congrats, Jamie Mitchell. Sadly, he broke his back.
On a wipeout?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't even read about it. That's what I mean. I just saw the headline. I'm like, oh, okay, he broke his back in Nazare. I'm not even going to read about it.
Wow. Where was the headline?
Surfline.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that'd be crazy if it's not even covered in surfing. That'll be a real indicator of who cares and who doesn't, is if you had to read that headline from ABC and Surf World didn't even cover it.
Yeah. No,
well, hey, you know who my Duke is? Need Essentials for
Hell
keeping
yes.
me warm all the time, in the water and out of the water.
You know, we got a massive cold front moving down Southern California, throughout the West, actually. And it's going to be butt cold. Probably going to be some fun waves on the backside of this event as the weather clears out and those clearing winds kick in. And you know what that means? Freezing, frigid, cold Southern California surfing. And you're going to need essentials. You're going to need your 4-3, your booties, your hood, maybe even some gloves if you're soft like me. And of course, that incredible fluffy, puffy down jacket that's just mind-blowingly toasty.
Are you snowboarding at all this season?
I'm going tomorrow.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's where you need your Need Essentials too.
I know. I'm excited that I have my little.
I've got the pants. I've got the ski pants from them. I've got all 3 jackets so I could layer up. I could go to Whistler and be warm.
I'm psyched. I got my Need Essentials for snowboarding on.
Are you going to see your boy?
What's that mean?
Your son.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm like, who's my boy? No, I'm not going up there. I'm just going local.
Okay, cool. Well, have a blast, man. Good for you.
Yeah, should be fun. Haven't gone all season.
Good. Me neither.
All right. Well, look, David, until next time, adios and aloha.